Hello, my name is Terry Lilly, and I'm a marine biologist here on the island of Kauai, living in Honolulu. And thank you for inviting me to talk at this very important meeting. I've done some underwater studies in the islands of Hawaii over the last 10 years. I have over 4,000 hours of underwater high-definition video studying coral reefs around planet Earth, actually in 7 different countries, but my main focus is here in Hawaii where I live. Since 2006, I've been monitoring our marine life and corals around the island of Kauai, and I have over 1,000 hours underwater, nighttime and daytime, doing so. When I started in 2006, was for an underwater educational series. I worked with a nonprofit, and we were doing the series for schools all throughout the Hawaiian Islands. In the past 15 years, I've worked on underwater studies with the United Nations, Reef Check, Congress, National Geographic, University of Hawaii, Scripps Institute, NOAA, the USGS, and a number of other groups. My main focus was just out monitoring the reefs to check on their health and to share the information with the school systems. In 2012, along the north shore of Kauai, I started to notice a very, very bad coral disease that was growing on some of the corals. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I was also at the same time doing studies on the Big Island, Maui, Niihau, Lanai, and other Hawaiian Islands, and I had not discovered any of this kind of coral disease in any of the other places, just the north shore of Kauai. So what I did is I took a lot of videos and pictures, and I alerted some of the coral specialists at the University of Hawaii, and they flew over and we did a detailed 3-year study on the north shore here to try to find out what was causing this coral disease that turned out to be a black band coral disease. Since 2012, over 50% of the corals have died here on the north shore of Kauai. Down on the Nepali coastline, in the beautiful coves of Milili'i and Nuololo, over 95% of the corals have died since 2012. This was so alarming that the top experts on the entire planet came over here to try to study with me to find out what was killing the corals. None of them could ever figure out, including myself, what was causing the problem. What we did know is that we know that a bacteria now is killing some of the corals called a cyanobacteria. But what we found out at a later date is the immune system of the corals themselves was compromised. Something is lowering the immune system of the corals here on the north shore of Kauai. Now, at the same time, in 2013 and 2014, I went to French Polynesia, most of the other Hawaiian Islands, the Caribbean, and different parts of the world to study their coral reefs and to see what the death rate was. Everywhere that I studied had about a 1 to 2% death rate or coral disease rate on the corals. On the north shore of Kauai, it had gone up to 30%. All of this was incredibly baffling to all of the scientists, including myself. One thing that happened about a year ago is I met a group of engineers that do work for the U.S. military. They're defense contractors. They're chemists, engineers, chemical engineers, physics, and they have an entire panel of folks, 12 PhDs. 2 of them are actually Nobel Prize winners. They started to review on land some of the negative effects from the military operations that were happening in different parts of the world. In Honolulu, in Guam, Puerto Rico, Indian River, and Florida, among other places. What they did is they were studying the negative effects of the military's electronic warfare that they started in about 2012. We now know that on the north shore of Kauai, the U.S. Navy started the first ever electronic microwave warfare out of the missile base here on Kauai. They utilized 26 microwave towers here, 3 to 4 warships, submarines, underwater electronic robots, and all kinds of other electronic equipment to produce the largest amount of microwaves ever produced on planet Earth. They're using this for a shift from nuclear warfare to electronic warfare. So what this company did for me, they were only studying land-based problems and human health issues around this microwave war issue. What they did for me is they outlined and showed me a NASA databank of all of the equipment that the U.S. military was using here on the North Shore of Kauai. They showed me the output in the millions of watts of microwaves the microwave towers were producing. They showed me what the military warships were using, how many microwaves and other types of electromagnetic frequencies they were beaming off of the warships here, right off the coast of Kauai. They added up all of the use of the electromagnetic radiation here, and it came to over 1 billion watts of focused electromagnetic radiation the military is using here, pulsating over 2,000 times a second. All of this started basically in 2012. That's when they turned on these frequencies of electronics. It just so happens it's also exactly when the coral reefs here started to die and become diseased. One thing that these very top flight worldwide engineers showed me, that when you're out in the water, in the ocean, around a harbor, or around boats, and the boats are producing electronics, it causes what is called marine corrosion. That's when electronics, electrical impulses, are discharged into the water, and that actually corrodes the metal around the boat's hull. It also corrodes engines. This is kind of a well-known effect that boaters all around the world have to deal with. So this is not anything new. What we found out from a boat builder in San Diego, California, that the U.S. military is using so many electronics on their Navy ships that it actually corroded the hull out of an 11-inch thick aluminum boat. These boats cost $1 billion a piece, and it was only a year old when the hull corroded. This was incredibly alarming because these same ships are operating right offshore of the North Shore of Kauai, right over top of our diseased and dying reefs. What I showed through high-def video, thousands of hours worth, is that we were having even our old-growth mound corals. Some of these corals are 4,000 years old. Most of them are over 100 to 500 years old. Well, these corals not only were dying, they were dissolving, turning into mud. At Nuololo and Milili'i, these corals are all gone. You would never know that they were even there. So what we did is got together with a group of scientists and really took a hard look at what the military was using here, and we connected the dots, put two and two together, that we think that the military electronics that they're discharging into the ocean are indeed corroding our coral reefs. So we did lab studies. We put frequencies of electricity into tanks with live corals. Sure enough, they died and started to corrode and dissolve. We added up, once again, all of the electronics being used here for the military electronic warfare, and we took all of this information in a presentation I did with Commander Bruce Hay. He's a commander of PMRF, our missile base here that's doing all of the testing. I gave a PowerPoint presentation to the commander and to their head environmental team about this problem of marine corrosion and what it looks like the military is doing that's killing our coral reefs. After a 2-hour presentation, the commander told me that I had more than enough information documenting the problem, and the timeline was correct about the dying coral reef and when they started their military electronic warfare. I have documents of this that I can email to people, and they agreed that this was an emergency and they should do an immediate study to find out exactly what's going on. Well, it just so happens that study never happened, or if it did, it was never told to us, the public, you and I. So at this point in time, we really don't know what the military is doing. Now, the other thing that I did over the past 20 years is I had an environmental law class. My specialty was the Endangered Species Act. I was taught, trained, and licensed by Craig Potter, who wrote the Endangered Species Act in 1972. Two of my main clients for my class for the last 15 years was the U.S. Navy and Monsanto. So I happen to know a lot about what they're doing. The Endangered Species Act is a very unique law. It's different than our state laws that protect wildlife or coral reefs, way different. State laws and county laws sometimes will demand that the military or big companies like Monsanto do an environmental impact statement to see what damage they're doing to the environment. The problem with the state laws is that the military and or these companies can operate and continue to do damage while they're doing this state environmental study. That's not going to do us much good at the rate that the coral reefs are dying on the North Shore of Kauai. By the time they get done with the state study, everything would be dead. What I'm bringing forth right now, and I'm teaching this to the general public, is the power of the Endangered Species Act. The Endangered Species Act was written on behalf of the people, not the government. It's the people's law to have power over the government. This is very, very, very important. The Endangered Species Act allows every other citizen, any citizen like you and I, to sue the federal government, the military, and to stop all activities if we can show that they're operating in the habitat of an endangered species and they have the likelihood of harming that endangered species. Okay, well, let's talk about that. In 2014, I shot 300 hours of video of U.S. Navy ships and Australian Navy ships blowing up sea turtles. I shot video of the Navy ships completely demolishing and breaking corals, thousands, tens of thousands of corals. I saw the U.S. military ships go by, and then we had dead pilot whales up on the beach. I have more than enough information to prove that the U.S. military is doing activities that harm our endangered species. All Hawaiian waters are habitat for the endangered monk seal, several endangered whales, the endangered hawksbill turtle, and the endangered green sea turtle. All we have to do is show that the military is likely harming these animals, and then we can get the military activities to be stopped. This is the power of the Endangered Species Act. The Endangered Species Act was made primarily for government agencies, the military, to force them to do studies ahead of time, not afterwards. The study is called a Habitat Conservation Plan, and I will go into it in detail in a future video that I will have uploaded here within the next couple days. But the bottom line is, with the Endangered Species Act, we can, I can, you can, and I will show you how to do it, cause legally the military to stop their actions here in Hawaii because there is the likelihood that they're damaging the habitat of our endangered animals. That's the way the law is written. Guess what? This law has been upheld in federal court now 27 out of 28 times. I have supplied a lot of my information to Earth Justice and the NRDC, and they have sued the U.S. military dozens of times over the use of sonar and have won every single time to get the military to stop. So I, for one, want to get this information out to everyone about how to utilize the Endangered Species Act so we can get the craziness of RIMPAC stopped and the U.S. Navy stopped from killing our marine life here in the Hawaiian Islands. There's one more thing that I really want to address here, and it's basically 1,800 years of people living in Hawaii and having a sustainable ocean. They knew how to be sustainable. They studied the ocean, they studied the marine life, and they set up the kapu system that basically told everyone you couldn't fish here in a certain time of year, or you needed to protect this cove because that's where the moi were laying their eggs. What they did is they studied the marine environment and took measures to create a sustainable environment so everyone would have food to eat. We can do that again here in Hawaii. It is not being done right now because the U.S. military is out there with the largest amount of electromagnetic energy, explosions and microwaves ever produced on planet Earth, basically destroying our marine ecosystem. All of this is in a 100% violation of the strongest federal law ever produced on planet Earth, and that law is controlled 100% by you and I. I wrote a letter to Suzanne Case, the head of the DLNR. Basically, it's called a 60-day notice, ordering her as a private citizen to enforce the Endangered Species Act on the U.S. military and to have all operations halted for them to do the needed habitat conservation plan that they should have done ahead of time. And I will send this information to everyone so they can have it, see how this law works, and also participate in causing this problem to be gone. It's a very, very powerful law, and you can all help. So I know this is a short presentation. I have a lot more to share, but thank you so much for all starting a dialogue about this major problem we have in Hawaii, helping me and all the wonderful people out there in the audience right now bring back a sustainable ocean to these Hawaiian Islands and get the U.S. military that is really truly going to destroy the oceans on planet Earth out of Hawaii here and get this done fast. You can research my work. You can go on my webpage. The best way to contact me is through Facebook. It's just under my name, Terry, T-E-R-R-Y, Lilley, L-I-L-L-E-Y. And I will post all of these documents and show you who to send them to and to how to write the letters so we can create the power back to the people of Hawaii and take back our environment for our children in the future so they have something to enjoy like we did. Thank you for listening, and more power to all of you. Aloha.